Benny Bobick, what's happening, my friend?
Man, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, all that good stuff, man. It's been a great holiday season. Hope you and your family have had a great, a blessed holiday, and then even better 2021 or end of
Yeah,
your
dude.
end of your 2022.
Yeah, we're gonna make this last 2 days strong. That's all we got to do. Just survive. I think this is kind of the big thing. So hopefully that's all we do, man. But Vols got to survive tonight. Basketball. So we're gonna have a basketballs preview coming up here in a little bit. We've got the state of the football program. Man, Benny, you've been covering a lot, dude, and I know
hmm
it's going to be one of those deals where you, as a national outside viewer, because my man Ben here is from the wonderful state of Pennsylvania,
hmm
a Yinzer himself, but also one of WRCB's best Channel 3 sports guy. He has an outsider's view, I guess, but also a man that lives here. So, like, from your status, how do you see these Vols right now in the football program? Like, what does it look like from an outsider?
Yeah, that's why I always joke with people. I'm like, hey, I could look at it with an unbiased eye. I don't technically have a dog in the fight. But when you cover teams, and I've seen that more on a local level here with high schools that make it to a statewide level or even the mocks, and you get out there and you kind of become a little bit of a homer. So like, I don't want to see the Vols, not succeed. Like my job's a lot more fun when they're doing well, obviously. But at the same time, like I don't lose sleep over them losing like some do. So I mean, it has been such a 180. I mean, a lot could happen in a year, as we've all seen in the world. A lot could happen in a year, and I think the Vols are a good example of that, because I just don't know, man. I feel it's amazing that there are some coaches that have lost their jobs, like the Gus Malzahns and the Will Muschamp's of the world, like and during this COVID season and COVID year, because I mean like, to borrow a line that from Gus, who the former Auburn coach, that might have gotten fired for saying this, like it's tough playing,
Yeah.
all conference games, especially when you're a team like Tennessee who has to consistently play Alabama every year and they look better than ever and stuff like that. You utilize those non-conference games to get those younger guys in, and I just think I think you got to give everything another year. You got to get a full football season in there, because you have to take into account the crowds. The crowd. I mean, when Neyland's rocking. I've been there. It's a lot of fun. And so I just feel like it's definitely taken a 180, and I feel like a lot of Vols fans, again, from like you mentioned, the outsider perspective, if for me it seems like they're ready to hit that panic button and hit the restart button. I just think you need to let it kind of marinate here, at least for another year, before we kind of click the box to the panic button open. If we're in the same spot this time next year, then I give full, not that I am the end all telling you when you should hit the panic button, but I'd maybe consider it.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's what I was wondering. I didn't know how, because that's how I feel also a little bit. I kind of go back and forth, like as a fan and somebody that's been around this program for many years. Like, I mean, that's like family heritage, is born and bred in Knoxville. You run through it. So it is weird, because personally, I don't know if Pruitt is the right guy for the long term. But also, I do have to give the benefit of the doubt of what a strange year. Tennessee was also, we mentioned it multiple times, Mike Pipe. Shout out to that guy. He's getting married this weekend, so that'll be big. So that's why my boy Benny's filling in today. But we talked about a lot that this program has so much to offer, but also it's like we want to have that short term because we believe that we're supposed to be somewhere. We're supposed to be at this pinnacle. It's not there. And you've got a lot of guys that you feel like are going to be coming back, but then also we've had I think 9 guys enter the transfer portal in the last 2 weeks. So lost our 2 edge rushers and Kevon and DeAndre. It's like, man, I know these aren't prominent guys. I think the real prominent guy was Shrout, and congrats to them going to Colorado. And then the JG debacle. That's probably the biggest harp on Pruitt, I think, is just the fact that he kept that Guarantano train rolling way longer than it probably should have. but you also understand that Tennessee was also in a case where they were probably the most COVID-ridden, COVID tracing of the teams. It feels like so it seems like they had the most days off or days excluded from their practices and things like that. So it's kind of nerve-wracking on that part. It's like, well, a lot of these guys don't want to come. Some of these cats, I feel like there's a little bit of panic. I don't know if you've seen this as far as some of these guys that are flipping out from our recruits. I think some of that might actually be just style of play. The tight end that went to Ole Miss instead of Tennessee. I think that a lot of that might be just because of this offense. But I don't know. How does it look as far as do you think there's going to be just this huge amount of turnover coming up for these coaches and maybe even some players? Or what are you thinking that's going to happen here in the next, 4 to 6 months?
Yeah, I wouldn't get too panicky on the recruits because you see a lot of the recruits are like, oh man, we lost a receiver, we lost a running back. Like,
yeah,
they have no shortage of those. The skill, like you see a lot of the skill positions, man. I've been a big Eric Gray fan from the start.
Huge.
I mean, that guy is the truth. And Ty Chandler had a great, he's great too. They really had. That's one position group you don't have to worry about. And receiver wise too. I mean, I think it was Jalen Hylett had a really good year for them this year. He's a real big deep threat. I mean, I remember the one press conference I was listening on to, and he's like, yeah, someone asked him, when did you realize that you were just like, faster than everybody else? And he kind of gave like a funny story when he was in 8th grade. And I just think the quarterback situation held them back a good bit this year. I just think, and like you mentioned with the COVID practices and stuff like that, they didn't really have that practice time and that's why I think held them back from putting Harrison Bailey in there. But I was a big component of, listen, it's trial by fire. Yeah. I mean, there's no experience. We've seen this from even if you simplify it to everyday life of just being just in your job, like they only teach you so much in school, but when you actually go do your job, like that's when you really learn it. Like it only teaches so much in the practice field. You're going to learn how to read defenses and see SEC speed while going out there and just playing. And they started to do that a little bit later in the season, but I think a full off season will help. But it'll be interesting to see. I think we'll see some coaching turnover. Obviously not the Pruitt wise, but I think there'll be a couple coaching positions that might turn over, and we'll see what happens. I just think they're going to benefit, like most teams in this country, from hopefully as much as you can be of an off season where you might not be a spring game, but at least you're able to go and practice in the spring and maybe have a normal fall camp,
That's big. So
I think that's where they'll benefit from. And then you get back into it in the fall. But I think Strout transferring was just like, listen, Harrison Bailey's going to be the guy here. I got to go find a spot where I could go and play. So you can't really fault him for that. And Garantano leaving, I mean, wish the dude nothing but the best. I mean, he's going to be 30 years old. Yeah, he is. He really is a good person. And hopefully he goes out there and finds somewhere we can play, and maybe he'll find more success. And I think Vols fans would like to see him. Like, hey, good for that guy. It's okay if things just don't work. And so we'll see what happens. But it's a tough spot right now. But I think right now everyone kind of I think them not playing the bowl game might have been the best thing. So everyone just takes a deep breath.
I think it was a weird pressure release for a lot of fans, to be honest. And I like this from Jason. I don't know. I guess I've not seen it enough, and mainly because we're in this little Vols bubble and we're in the Tennessee world, but I don't feel like there are as many players transferring from other schools from what I've seen. Outside of a few times, I know Florida had some earlier on in the year, but that was from other trebles. I'm really not seeing a lot, so that's what's weird. And it's weird. I feel like we're seeing more as this transfer portal stuff gets going though as well. Like you mentioned, other teams kind of have it, but I think it's just sometimes those I don't want to call them non-impactful players, but not like the big names. It's like so and so's transfer, and that's a big deal. I mean, we see some guys that might want to better their situation because this portal thing is becoming more like a mini free agency in its own right. So I think we're just seeing more guys everywhere kind of just do it as this progresses. I mean, the portal was
I remember when it first came out. It was like last year, the year before, when we were like, "What's this transfer portal?" So it's
where are you taking? Which galaxy are you going off in?
all right. They all just sit in a waiting room and like just kind of just wait for interviews. I mean, how do you?
Yep.
What is this portal? So I think to hear what Jason said, I mean, hey, I think each team has their fair share, because like you'll see the Vols lose some guys, but I bet you in the next couple of weeks, next couple of months, you'll see them bring some more guys in. Just how it is. So
yeah. 100%. I think so, because there was a defensive end from Iowa State they've already offered, a couple other guys. So there's going to be some talent that comes in. Knoxville's still a destination for a lot of places, for a lot of people, a lot of players. Jay Graham's a known guy. I mean, even through all the allegations, which we'll get to that here in just 1 second. But I still think there's going to be a little tempering down from that, because it doesn't see it's probably going to be bad as far as ethics go, but I don't know if it's as bad punishment wise as some people thought. So we'll see. I don't know. I don't know if the bag man of Coach Niedermeyer is a real thing, because that's all you've heard is just pure cash layouts. Mm-hmm. But there's also guys coaching in the SEC and throughout the country that have done way worse, and they're still on the sidelines. There's a guy at LSU coaching in basketball. There's a man in Arizona coaching in basketball. So I don't know, man. Do you see this being a big punishment thing, or do you think this might be just because rumor has it Niedermeyer did hire a lawyer. I don't know how true those accusations are, but I heard that through multiple places. So it's kind of like maybe. So I don't know. Do you see this being a big-time program thumper as far as any sort of big postseason bans or anything like that?
At least right now, I don't. I mean, it's not. It's still kind of small, and every university has its issues. I mean, I'm a Penn State grad, and they were dealing with some issues as well with James Franklin, and apparently with some hazing incidents and stuff like that. And that seems to be, obviously it's still playing out, but Penn State could have played in a bowl game this year if they wanted to. They chose. So it's still. I mean, I think if anything, you might see a fine. You might see some reduction of scholarships, which you tend to see. And for a place like Tennessee that has the financial backing that it does, I don't think it shouldn't be anything more than a hiccup. Although they're trying to build things up, but at least as of now, I don't see it being anything too crazy. But it's definitely something to keep an eye on as it progresses. You just hope it doesn't turn for the worst. It's definitely, I don't want to call it thin ice, but the ice may be thinning in the sense of it turning potentially bad. But it's something to keep an eye on, definitely.
Yeah, that guy. I kind of got this question from Herb. I forgot to put his little link up there. My bad, dude. But yeah, I just wanted to see if it was kind of it's a wait and see. I think it is. I think it's going to be tempered down. I think timing wise of that article was rough. You have a Vol fan base. It's very upset. And not on the up and up. Thank goodness you have basketball.
Right.
It seemed like when our boy Trey Wallace did a great job. That is good reporting. And, everybody talks about there's weird stuff as far as his getting a leak story. But I think Trey's just a good dude that's kind of come through and had some really good guys and good sources. And they were like, hey, this has been going on since early December. Mm-hmm. So a man knew what he knew, and there's a lot of timing issues, I think, with that, as far as like the angst and the anxiousness of like a fan base. It's like, we're gonna get destroyed. We're gonna be SMU, it's probably not gonna be that. It feels like there's so many people that caught with similar stuff, but inside a Vol circle and a frustrated 3-7. And like our boy Blasey said, we got a bag man that could go 3-7. Not great.
Yeah, and I feel like everyone needs to if you really break it down from a perspective of like programs where you want to be. In my opinion, there are 3 programs in the country that are where you want your program to be, and that's Alabama, Clemson, and Ohio State. There are 3 elite programs. Mm-hmm. You're not going to get there. Then there are the great programs, like the Floridas and Oklahomas who are playing in the Cotton Bowl right now. Yeah. You want to be there. There's the good programs that play in that. Look what the Vols were. They got a taste of it last year. I don't want to say they're not a good program, but you know what I mean. Like, hey, getting back, making that. Everyone thought that was the next step of getting to the Gator Bowl and winning and going on that win streak. You don't need to sometimes where they are right now, you just need to kind of focus on like, hey, let's just focus on just being a good program. Let's string together like maybe 2 or 3 seasons where we're 8 wins, maybe 9, and then let's start talking about, okay, like where can we get to start winning 10 games, and where can we get to where we're maybe kind of scratching at the surface to get into play in Atlanta for the SEC championship. It's got to be it's not going to be 98 all of a sudden next year. It's just not anymore. The way that it's so competitive across the board in college football, so many different programs, and the SEC in particular. I mean, think about you have more teams than you do back when the last time the Vols really competed and went to an SEC championship. I mean, look at Texas A&M. They weren't in the SEC, and now they're they were on the doorstep of a playoff spot this year. Yeah, and they play Tennessee this year.
Yeah,
exactly. And it's just one step at a time. But bad season's a bad season. But I think just a lot of Vols fans have that PTSD, if you will, where it's like, oh gosh, here we go again. Yeah. It's like, hey, it was a weird year. You weren't allowed to practice as much. People were sick. It stinks. You weren't even allowed fans in the building, or you were, but like no, you weren't allowed full fan. You know what I mean? So I think it's just take a deep breath. We'll figure it out in the long run.
If Tennessee, if everybody gets back to normal. I know some states are going to be different, but I do feel like Tennessee would be one of the tier 1 first to get back to normal because we just don't care that much. They'll push for that. So that, like you said, I do think that fan base, I do think that Saturday experience brings way more than people expect, especially in college football. Probably not so much in the pros. You can even see that from gambling lines, it feels like, but I don't feel like as much in college or in the pros as it does in college, because these kids are going to be so much energy that you go into 100,000 person stadium. We've got SEC has maybe 400,000 plus stadiums, and everybody's knocking on the door, even for like 85,000. So, it's a lot. I don't know.
When Neyland's rocking, it's rock. I mean, you know more than I do because you probably went to some games growing up and all that stuff. The closest I got to what I feel like is probably Neyland at its finest, if you will, was I was at the Georgia game last year when Marquez Callaway I think caught that deep ball and they were winning in the first quarter. It was a night game, prime time against the Dogs. I was on the field. That place was rocking. I'm like,
you're not going to get any better than that. Yeah, you might as well like that moment right there. Just take that. That's probably what you're going to get.
Chills, even Tommy. I'm like, let's go. I'm like, this was cool, and I'm like trying not to shake because I had the camera. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. I'm like, I'm right in front of the student section. Yeah. So I mean, come on, it doesn't get any better than that. And so you just gotta. That has an effect on some games and some people and people feed off that as well too. The players feed off that as well.
Yeah, 100%. Let's get to it. Our boy Richie here. Like we talked about a little bit earlier, Richie. I mean, I don't think it's quite as big of a deal as it seems right now because of where we're at as far as the wins and losses. Let's just be honest. Like if you're winning and these transfers happen, you're like, oh, okay, whatever. It's 2 backup quarterbacks, a guy that we wanted to get rid of, a guy that had a gun and drug charge, and a decent pass rusher in DeAndre, and some tight ends that just don't really work in the system. Pope wants to be better. He left the program. He had no problems with anybody. He just wanted to go show off his skills for his senior year. Like that's no big deal. That happens all the time. And I think I know Ben pointed out earlier, you're going to see more transfers because so many teams went into bowl games and so many teams are figuring out in this weird spot of a postseason that you're going to have some people transfer, come in, working on these new recruits and where you're going to fit in, where you're not going to fit in. Is the 1-year transfer immediate play rule going to take into effect fully? So it's a lot of factors. And I do think I'm not hitting the panic button too much because it's not like an outpouring of so many transfers and everybody just hating on this program. I think there's still more to come. I think there's going to be a few more guys transfer in, transfer out, but that's a lot to do with how things work out in early spring practice and, got a lot to see. So I don't know. I think that there's going to be some turnover there, but and then Jason asked also, do you see any assistant changes coming in the next couple weeks or months?
I mean, there's a good chance. I mean, I think there was was it the D-line coach that he let go in the middle of the
Yeah.
season, right? So I mean,
Yeah.
that alone right there, and so I wouldn't be surprised you see some minor guys, and maybe I don't even know, position group changes, maybe some shuffling around, or maybe just bring some different guys on too. You know, you got to think everyone's making changes, so hey, we're going to bring so and so on as a assistant quality control coach, or stuff like that, where they're able to come in and sort of have an influence and have a say in the coach's room. So there probably will be a little bit, and that might come in the next month or so, probably once you get through January and maybe through the next second signing day that you'll see. But even when you to circle back quickly on the transfers too, you see guys, so and so leaves out, but guess what? Hey, you probably got X amount of freshmen, redshirt freshmen you have that are out there, so that are on the team ready to make a difference. So why not give the younger guys a chance to kind of step up and play? That's the one thing I've enjoyed most about the program. You saw it last year, and they couldn't do it as much this year. As Pruitt's done a good job of kind of putting those young guys out there and giving them an experience.
Yeah,
and that's what you need. I mean, because some of them flourish. Like look at Henry Ototo, dude's a beast. Starting as a true freshman, as he should have, because he's a beast. But it threw him out there, and next thing you know, boom, he's a stud. So, I just think if you swap it on the glass half full mentality, it just gives some of the younger guys, and more guys you're bringing in, a chance to step up and get some PT.
Yeah, and I liked what I saw from playing hot more, playing these freshman wide receivers. I saw some more young guys playing towards the end of the year when you saw the season's over. It's not looking great. Time to play Bailey, play some of these younger guys, get some continuity. And here they are. You saw some real speed. You saw some real talent. You saw some flaws. There's a lot to work on. Offensively, especially defensively. That's the one thing that I am personally frustrated with, to have such a defensive-minded coach and to have such a porous defense at times, and just an unaware, that sweet little awareness rating that's the most underrated thing in Madden. That's not there. That's not high on Tennessee's team right now. That's not high, and that's very frustrating. And that's one thing they're going to have to work on a lot, is just knowing assignments. And one of my good friends, Steve Hurd, and I, we talk about it a lot. It's just crazy. These guys, they're 9 games in, 10 games in, and they don't know where to go. And it's like, man, these aren't tough switches, like on a crossing pattern. It's not tough, because it's not like you're not getting middle and short routes different. It's 2 short routes that are just crossing pass. It's not hard. Hey, you got that guy. Hey, you got that guy. It just works. It's easy stuff. Yeah. So I don't know. I think there's a lot of guys that are going to have to work on some things, but
and you got to think some of, like you mentioned, the lack of practice. They're trying to put in coverage plans and stuff like that, or game plans through Zoom and stuff. Like you can't. I think there's a lot more of that than we don't give credit for too.
100%.
So I think a lot of that, and then if you really break it down to the last 3 games, I mean, they played Vanderbilt, and it's Vandy. It was what it was, but guess what? They did what they were supposed to do against Vandy.
Yeah,
they did, and then they played Florida and Texas A&M. Those are 2 top 10 teams in the country.
2 studs, and just and matchup nightmares. Let's just call it what it is. They're so much faster.
Yeah, it's like Florida's playing in a flipping New Year's Six bowl game right now. Texas A&M's going to play one in a couple of days. Like that means they're one of the they're literally top 10 teams in the country. So you can't expect them to go out there and the fact that they were actually winning the one game against Texas A&M, it's like, oh, hey. It's like little spurts like that are kind of nice, where they're kind of, hey, maybe they can't hang with 4 quarters, but if they can hang for 2, then next year, let's take it up a notch. It's all about completing the puzzle there.
100%. So I'm going to segue on completing the puzzle. Right now, Tennessee Vols basketball is atop of the SEC and definitely the premier program. I mean, obviously Kentucky is at a 100-year. I think it's like 107 years since they've been 1-6. I mean,
it's bad.
So now Tennessee and this Missouri team are the elite class of the SEC. I think there's gonna be some other teams that come along, but right now these 2 are by far the best, man. And there's a lot riding on this one, because we were talking before the program. Missouri's played some people, Tennessee's not really. Colorado's by far the best program we've played. So who's going to see who's going to get the big shots tonight? Like when it comes down to crunch time, what are you seeing from these guys? Who do you think is going to wind up being the guy?
Well, it's going to be cool to see. It really is going to be cool to see because you're kind of talking about like you mentioned, a Tennessee team that's a little bit younger, unproven. Missouri's kind of based off that experience, and they bring their top 7 scorers back. 4 of the 5 starters, all that jazz. They get the home game. But I'm excited to see who will step up into that role for Tennessee. I mean, I think if you go reliable, I mean, you always go well. Always go with Falky. I mean, that dude he just gets better. He's just one of those guys that's just he doesn't do it. He doesn't look pretty doing it, but it doesn't matter because he's doing it. Yeah. And I'm excited I'm a big Jaden Springer guy, man. I think me too. I mean, how could you not be? Let's be honest. And I think you mentioned, to answer your question, like who's going to step up and be the guy, I think that's – I can flip a coin because if you look at how Tennessee's been getting it done this season, again, like you mentioned, small sample size. They haven't really played anybody. Springer's the only guy that's gotten over 20 points this year. Just that's not a sense of like they're bad. It's just because they spread the love so much on the offensive end. I mean, they've had 6 guys in double figures, I think, twice this year. I mean, you can't ask for much more if you're a basketball team. I mean, everyone's stepping up and doing their job. And like I was covering the Mocs today, that's why they're 9-1. That's why they've had so much success because they're just it could be anybody's guy, anybody's chance. So, but tonight will be definitely their first real test, if you will. It's going to be fun to watch, and I think it's going to be. I'm excited because I've gotten so much more into college basketball these last few years, and Tennessee's a big reason why covering them. That team they had 2 years ago. I mean, my goodness, was it so much fun to watch. Man. This is like the first real, this is the first big time conference matchup of the season. Like this is the top 15 teams, SEC matchup. The Vols going on the road for the first time this year, and we're going to kind of get a chance to see what they're about, at least in the early going. So, I mean, it's one you definitely wake up groggy for work tomorrow. But then again, it's New Year's Eve, so who knows if people are going to work tomorrow? But you know what I mean? Like,
I'm a half day guy tomorrow. I am the afternoon, which I don't hate it, man. So I'm kind of digging this. The 9 o'clock game perfectly works out. I don't know who the SEC scheduler was, but they kind of lucked up on this one. I think that weird night before. A lot of people take off work, so 9 o'clock start time. People are going to be doing that. Hey, I'm going to prep for New Year's and stay up a little bit later the night before too, so get my schedule.
Yeah, so, I think it's just probably because it's bowl season too. You never want to get a little sprinkle that in there too, but for sure, yeah. I mean, I love a good 9 o'clock game. That's the best. That's when college basketball is at its best. Super Tuesday, 7 o'clock, 9 o'clock games. You're getting top 15 matchups. It's the best.
Yeah, well, Trey Wynn, back-to-back comments here. He was asking how much of a test this matchup is for Tennessee. It's huge because this is their first away game and by far their best opponent. Also, I think a lot of ball fans have gotten used to putting up 100 points or 80 points. I don't feel like either team's going to be there tonight. I think this is probably going to be a way more defensive-oriented game. Go back to Konzo's old ways. Mm-hmm. I do think both teams can score, so there's always that possibility. Don't get me wrong, but I think both teams are going to be, rocking a hard place. First big matchup, a lot of nerves. Tennessee still got some kinks to work out. They've just been playing some pretty subpar opponents. Nothing against the guys, but it's just big time D1 versus mid-major, lower tier mid-major. So Missouri's played some people. And also Illinois is a really good team.
They are.
Okungwu and Cockburn are both just monsters.
Yeah, they are.
And they're both two guys that could make first to third team All-American. Like, they're that good because Cockburn is like 7'1", 280. If you guys remember Azubuike from Kansas, it's basically that guy, but maybe a little bit more chiseled. Looks a little Dwight Howard-ish. I mean, these guys can really play. And Okungwu is averaging like 24 points a game. And Missouri, they had a big lead. I think 13. They let them back into one, and then just made some plays down the stretch and wound up beating a good Illinois team at home. And then they've also played Bradley. They beat Wichita State. And I just think this is a really, really good matchup for Tennessee if they want to show, hey, we've got enough talent And like Blasey says, defense always travels. This is the number 2 scoring defense in the nation. So there's a lot to prove there. So I don't know. Do you think that defense travels tonight, or do you think that's a lot to do with who they play so far, Benny?
Yeah, I think it's going to be everything you said there. It will travel, but I think it's going to be the jitters. This is a big game for both these teams. I mean, yeah, Missouri's played Illinois, but that's like a kind of a playing with house money. Like, we lose to Illinois, we lose, doesn't matter in the long run because, if we play them tight, that'll be good for our resume. But if you really look at the SEC as a whole, this year, kind of a down year. And I'm not just saying that because the Vols are predicted to win. They could be an up year, and the Vols would still be towards the top of the league. I mean, so if you really look at the teams that are probably going to compete for the SEC title, I mean, Tennessee's probably the one near the top, and it's Missouri. And then I know Kentucky's off to a bad start, but I mean, it's still Kentucky. You have to imagine they're going to rack up a few of these SEC wins, against some of the smaller schools, not smaller schools, but you know what I mean, the ones that don't, they'll start stacking a few wins. And like you mentioned, LSU's always around, and then Auburn too, in a sense. I know they don't have a postseason to play for this season, but
self-imposed.
But it's Bruce Pearl, and Auburn's had a lot of success the last 2 seasons. I mean, they were at a Final Four trip. So I think this is the cream of the crop this year in the SEC. So and it's kind of cool we're seeing it this early, because when they play again, I'm not sure if they play again too. Do they, or is it just they just play them once this year?
They play again.
Right. So they'll play again. And when they do, it'll probably be a lot different when they play tonight, because the teams will probably, they'll be weathering the storm through the SEC. So, I think the defense, it'll travel, just because I think both teams will kind of be, you'll get that. Might be a slow start, might be a hot start type of deal where it will, kind of tamper off. But, this is, both these teams want this win bad, obviously, to win an SEC game, but to kind of prove themselves. And you got to hope that Tennessee wants it a little bit more because of that reason, because they don't, they haven't played anybody yet, and this is a good chance for them to say, "Hey, we're worthy of our ranking." We're good. Not that anybody's questioning their ranking, because people watch them play and you're like, "Yeah, that team's good."
They're good.
They just are, and this would be a good way to prove themselves. So why not go and do it on the road in an SEC game against Missouri, a place they've had some success at recently too. They gave about a little 3-game winning streak over the Tigers too.
Yeah, the Konzo matchup's not been wonderful for him personally coming back. So I do believe that this team is really going to play some great defense. I think you're going to learn a lot tonight on the rotation, like who's really going to be in tough situations, who's going to be playing. Can Springer really beat guys off the dribble, or was that just beating South Carolina upstate guards off the dribbling? Because that guy, when he gets 2 feet in the lane, is very tough.
Yeah, and you gotta hope. I want to see his poise in a tough game too. I want to see his poise in a game like this. Does he panic? Does he distribute? Does he try to take over the game? Try to do too much? I mean, and because that's one thing, like I mentioned earlier, that they have been doing a really good job of not doing too much. No singular person. They're distributing the ball very well. My favorite player, I think, on the team is Santiago Vescovi. That is smoother than a baby's bottom with the left stroke too. I mean, just the way he distributes, and I love watching him shoot the 3. It's just so smooth. So I'm interested to see how they, and I hope for their sake it is a close game, and that's not a dock on them, just because they probably need it.
Yeah,
they probably need it.
Definitely need it.
Yeah, they haven't played much close games. Obviously, they've been blowing teams out. For much of the fact that they need a nice tight one to kind of see what this team's all about. Because guess what? When you're playing in April, you got a close game. I mean, you don't figure it out, you're going home.
Oh, 100%. I think also tonight, personally, I think maybe my biggest person that I want to come out and play well is Victor Bailey. This guy's obviously been our leading scorer so far, but Vic has got a lot to prove as far as he wants to be known. And this guy's played so well so far. One of the, he and Vescovi are the 2 guys on the team. When they let it go, you're like, that's going in. You just feel good about those 2 behind 3. And they're really our main spacers. There's a lot of guys that can heat up. Even Josiah James looked good. He's somebody that you just feel so consistent about offensively and defensively. But Vescovi and Bailey you feel so good about them offensively, because they're 2 guys that can space the floor. We've got a lot to work on. That's why a lot of teams play zone against us, because it's like it's only those 2, and if both of them are on the floor at the same time, it could cause some trouble. Konzo's going to do a good job defensively. He's going to try to put a lot of pressure on these guards, especially the younger ones. And Vescovi's not the fastest creature in the world.
Yeah, he's not.
But he's crafty, so he's gonna have to play well tonight. But I really look for Victor Bailey to maybe establish himself as somebody that rises up. You know that we always talk about. There's that one guy every year for Rick Barnes.
Yeah,
makes these strides and is like turns into a first or second teamer in the SEC. And last year it was Fulke, and Pons even stepped up big. I really think that's Victor Bailey because he's like, I had a year off. I figured stuff out. I want to make this. I want to make this impact, not making that trip from Oregon anymore. So,
yeah,
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, and he's their leading scorer thus far. And like I said, take it with a grain of salt with how they've been distributing. But I agree. I think, yeah, you want that one guy who – and this could be, like you said, it could be the Victor Bailey official, coming out party here where you kind of step up and do this in a game against a conference opponent, a top 15 conference opponent that is Missouri. I was joking with you about that before we even started this. I'm like, man, I just really underestimated that Missouri's a top 15 team.
I know. Isn't that crazy?
So it's a really good opportunity for Tennessee and a really good opportunity for Victor Bailey to kind of establish himself as a stud that he is. I mean, he is, but you know what I mean, on the big, given the big stage, the bright lights, prime time, 9:00 SEC network, have a big game, give the Vols a win, first one in the SEC could be a cool moment for the kid.
It could be really nice. And I know tonight's gonna be tough. When you're competing with some of the Oklahoma Florida game, even though they're without three of their big stars, Gaines, Pitts, and oh man, I'm losing my mind. Can't think of third guy, but they have three guys out. You move the line. Benny Bobick here is our man from the competition problem. Here's the SEC slate up. Sorry, the graphics not wonderful, but got multiple games here. And tonight's already started a little bit, but how you feeling so far? Do you have anything for us, maybe a little gambling wise, or just some picks you got? SEC slate?
Hindsight's obviously 2020 here as I'm looking up at the score of the Cotton Bowl. Oklahoma's leading Florida 17-0, and Kyle Trask, I think, threw 2 interceptions, having a little bit tough start. A lot of game left. But and they're down like everybody, at least on the offensive end. So Mike and I were joking how we always take those lines. We saw that Florida was out the lines, or they were out all those guys, and we hurry up and took them -2.5 because that line jolted up to 7.5. Obviously, that's kind of tough to tell you guys that now, but but no, we have some good stuff kind of brewing here on the competition problem. We're actually going to record that later tonight and then have it out tomorrow. I'm really interested to see Mike's opinion. He gave me one goal last week. He said, Ben, don't let me bet Notre Dame because Alabama's favored by 19.5. I think it's the largest spread in the college football playoff era. Yeah. And he's right. It's a lot of points, but then when you watch Alabama play this year, it's like, but is it a lot of points? I mean,
it's a lot of points
because it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. So definitely keep an eye on that spread because I think Alabama comes out and make a statement. I think I was joking about with you with North Carolina, how they're so up and down, that Texas A&M Orange Bowl. That might be the one. I think my little hot pick of fun games to watch, if you will. I think that could shape up to be a fun one. It's just all about. It's not so much because I think it's fun because I don't know if you trust either team. North Carolina's kind of burned us a lot this year with some of these bets, and Texas A&M, and you can't trust them to score all the time, but. We'll see. I think the weird one is going to be Auburn because Auburn's getting points against Northwestern. And Northwestern is one of those. Yeah, Auburn's, I think, getting 3.5 points. And obviously they don't have a coach. Well, they do now, but, they don't have, really many to coach them on the field. You're thinking, Northwestern's had a really good year. They competed with Ohio State. They were in the game in the fourth quarter in the Big Ten championship. That's how I credit it. So, that's one I'm interested. I'm going to throw something weird out there to Mike about that, and he's probably going to kill me. But we'll see what happens. I just think Auburn getting those points against Northwestern. Northwestern has an exceptional defense. Yeah. They are the old school vintage Big Ten team at its finest. Where you watch a game they played against, I think it was Wisconsin. I think there was probably like 8 or 10, like 10 straight punts between the two of them. Yeah, just like what am I watching?
And that is not going to be a fun game.
No, it's
I hate
not
to
going to
say
be a
that.
fun game.
I mean, you're going to get typical Bo Nix.
Mm-hmm.
This sounds perfect. Bo Nix, 15 for 26, 190 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick, maybe 35 yards on the ground. It seems perfect for him.
Yeah, that's about it. And then because and it's just and Auburn's defense kind of I don't think has been up to Auburn standards this year. They're they lost a lot. I mean, heck, they had two, their defensive line had 2 dudes. One of them was a top 10 pick. I mean, come on, it's tough to replace that type of talent, but they'll get back there and. It'll be an interesting game to watch, even though I don't know if I'll watch it for the exact reason we just talked about. But I totally get that. Right, and another one's like the Mississippi State Tulsa game. I mean, shoot, that could go either way. I mean, it's one of those games where it's a little bit weird, but I think the fun one's going to be Texas A&M, North Carolina. I think that one could get out of hand in the sense of the over kind of number seems high, but.
What is the over right now?
Crazy. I have it written down actually right over here because I have my notes around here. I hope I wrote it down.
I couldn't remember because that one has to be high.
65.5.
Oh yeah, that's
pretty. It's pretty hefty for a team like Texas A&M who's been criticized with their offense all season long. But North Carolina,
they can give up some points.
They can score too. So
I'm a two love man. I'm a Vols and Carolina fan because my cool cousins were Carolina fans. When you're young and the cool cousins, you go to Greensboro and they've got North Carolina gear. You're like, I'm going to become a fan too. And so that's kind of how I fell in love with those boys too. And so it's like, man, if you're betting the overs with Carolina against a very competent offense, like I know you've talked about, Texas A&M has their duds, but they're also playing a rough Carolina defense. But an offense that can put up points in a hurry. Those two running backs, I think Williams might have opted out actually, but how in that receiving core are going nuts. How's another guy that I really look for could be? He's going to be top tier Heisman runner next year. I watch out for that. That guy's going to be really good. He is. Awesome job recruiting. So I'm with you. That could be a fun. Like, not even kidding. It could be like high 40s, low 50s top match.
Yeah, it could be.
Because they're going to play a lot of people.
Yeah, and one I completely whiffed on, not whiffed, but completely forgot about was another one I think is going to be good is the Peach Bowl with Georgia and Cincinnati. I completely. Georgia's got a decent bit sitting out themselves, obviously, but it's Georgia. They've got plenty of talent on that roster, and I think it's going to be a really good game because it's going to be a turning point for the Dogs in the sense of, okay, if JT Daniels, who's we all hope he can come back just for the sake of competition I say this on a Vols thing because they could, they probably hope he leaves and all that stuff. It's funny, but if he does come back, this could be the turning point of, okay, did Georgia actually have the team that can finally break that ice now that they have a quarterback? And if you're Cincinnati, I mean, come on, like why this is your chance to prove that you should have been in the playoff. Yeah. And I think I saw the Dogs are wearing their black unis and Cincy's wearing the red ones. Are playing in Atlanta. It's like a noon game. I am like, that one's going to be a lot of fun too. And I think that one had a low number for at least over under. Let me look here. Look at my trusty notes here. It's 50.5. Now Georgia has a really good defense, and so does obviously Cincinnati as well. But I just think that could be the potential to be a really good game because that's your classic, great program versus the one that's looking to prove themselves. I know because my team was in it last year. Was Penn State took on Memphis in the Cotton Bowl. I'm like, oh man, you don't want to play that game. You're like, crap, like we have everything to lose. So if we lose, we lose to Memphis, and if we win, it's like sweet, you beat Memphis in the Cotton Bowl. But I think Cincinnati, no disrespect to Memphis, but I think Cincinnati probably gets a little bit more respect, being that they're undefeated too, and they were a little bit closer to the college football playoff than Memphis was last year. Although look at UCF when they beat Auburn a few years ago in this game.
Exactly. Same thing. So Cincinnati's got a lot to prove, and that program, they're doing things, man, and they're gonna really want to win this game. And I'm on that feeling when I saw that initially. You obviously know there's going to be guys sitting out for Georgia. They just have so much talent. But exactly like you said, Ben, they're a factory down there.
Yeah.
It's probably the second or third best state in recruiting right now as far as top tier talent. I mean, obviously numbers wise, it's tough to compete with your Calis and Texases, but talent wise, Georgia's just unbelievable. They're just pumping out factories, and those guys, they recruit well down there. So that's going to be a fun one because there's going to be a lot of new guys that are going to have stuff to prove. We all know that Georgia's probably got 3 5-star running backs that are always ready to pump out. There's the next Todd Gurley sitting down there somewhere.
Exactly.
So there's going to be something fun there, but I do think that Cincinnati is going to come out and try to establish their point. We should have been there, and you guys missed again because, there's always somebody you missed on. And this was a really good, weird year because it kind of pushed for that 8-teamer. Like that.
If there was ever a team, if there's ever a year to flip and do it, it was this year too.
This year. Yeah, because it's I think that showed especially for Cincy, playing the amount of games.
Yeah.
And winning pretty handily on most of their games and then beating good competition. And they didn't get the clout. They did. Yeah. I mean, I know people talk about an aftermath, hindsight, but I really didn't even feel like up until later on it was Texas A&M that should have got in. Some people talked. I mean, the people that know that haven't, but from the general public, it was like it should have been Texas A&M, and yeah, probably so. I mean, maybe, but Cincinnati was probably that next team that was really pushing it to get in. But I don't feel like nationally they got a ton of viability from people that like they should have been the next team, or they definitely should have got in. They did everything right. So I think the committee's going to have a lot to think about as far as we got to give these people some sort of layout, some sort of guidelines. Hey, if you do this, this, and this, you're going to get in. And I feel like from what we've established so far, that's what they did, but they didn't get that chance. So this was a bit, like you said, this was a really good year to do an 8-teamer.
Yeah. Yeah, if you just look at the basics here, I mean, you look at Division FCS football, Division II football, Division III football. They all have a normal tournament. Yep. It is just this obsession, and it's all money. Yeah, it's the obsession with I got to have the bowl games. If you just, I mean, the bowl games are great. Trust me, I love bowl season just as much as you know. I mean, for the exact reason today, where Wisconsin's playing, Wake Forest in the Mayo Bowl, and the quarterback drops the trophy, and they put the Mayo bottle on top. That's why we love bowl season, to watch them play in the Duke's Mayo Bowl. Yeah. But jokes aside, I mean, they probably at that time where they need to seriously consider doing away with these bowl games in a sense of actually getting a real tournament to determine a champion, where you can give Cincinnati these chances, or you can give these other teams, and especially in this year's case, that have played X amount, the Texas A&Ms that have played 9 games this year. They kind of got screwed out of it in that sense. Whatever your opinion is there, but at least at least they have a chance to do it. There's probably a really good chance we probably might still have the Final Four. We do, maybe not a different team in there, but at least we know that it happened the way it should have, and it happened. Everybody had their chance to do it, and I think there's still a fun way where we could implement the bowl games into some of these. Like if you did a tournament, say it was like a 32, just throw one out there, like 32 teams. You kind of work your way up in these bowl games where it's like, oh, so and so's playing in the Mayo Bowl, and then you get to the quarterfinals, and it's like the Citrus Bowl and the Outback Bowl, and then you get into the semifinals that you just rotate through of what it is today, where it's the Sugar Bowl and it's the Peach Bowl. You could still call it that, and you could throw an advertisement on it if you want to make your money. But at least it's flipping fair. At least these teams get a chance to go in there and compete for a real national title, because it's only going to take that one time. It's going to take that one time where Cincinnati goes and plays Clemson, hypothetically, and they beat them. Yeah. And it's going to, because it's just football, it's on any given Sunday, any given Saturday, any given Friday, and they go and beat them. And it's just like when Chattanooga back in '97 in the Hoops tournament went all the way to Sweet 16, the OG Cinderella, and it changed March Madness forever.
Yeah. crazy because it's all and I know we all understand football is way different than basketball, but guess what? Talent's just wildly distributed nowadays. Everybody, it's funny, like the correlation I can bring along. Like think about what Nike was bringing out to their stores is what Walmart has now just 2 years later. It's a lot of that kind of stuff because these kids are getting so much content. Like you can watch different things. You can see how people play. You can evaluate. There's so many really good coaches out there because it's a great way to make money for these people that are out of college that were good college players. And that some of these guys that are 4-star guys that they can get more video of, they can go to all these camps. Like there's so much talent out there that's getting better and learning the game faster just at a younger age. And you're getting specialty coaching at 7 instead of 17. You know, it's like it's totally different now. There's so many guys out there. There's so much better talent. And God, I feel like there's always some freak of nature that's coming along too. There's a Trevor Lawrence or anybody like that. It's like, oh.
Yeah, and you might get a little bit more parity too. You know, it seems like every year where it's like this year, the Auburn job opened up. Like, oh, they're going to go after the Jamie Chadwell on Coastal. They're going to go after Bill Napier and down south, or and then they're going to go after so and so for this job. It's like, why would they? You know, why do they need to? You stay at a certain school where you have that tournament where you are competing for a national title. Like, hey, why would I leave here? Yeah, sure, for the money and all that stuff, but like, hey, I'm winning my conference every year. Like I'm getting a chance to compete for a national title every year. And guess what? Like those 1 or 2 years that I do get to the quarterfinals, or say I do get to the semifinals, that's going to attract more kids to come to my program.
Yep.
That's going to bring more money in because I said it from the jump, and everything that happened this year with whatever your opinion is on it or not with the Final Four. I personally think they got it right in that sense. I know Ohio State only played 6 games, but we're playing this season for 3 teams. I said it from the jump. It's for Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, because I think those 3 teams, no matter how many games they played, are just a level above the rest of college football right now. And you saw it in who was lobbying for us to play. It was Trevor Lawrence and it was Justin Fields, and they were kind of spearheading this whole effort because they wanted to come back and play because they wanted to compete for a national title. And guess who's competing for a national title this week?
Yeah, and I'm with you. It's kind of a differing opinion every day. It seems like it's like, well, this team, Cincinnati, Texas A&M, whoever else, like you said, that 4th spot was the 4th spot. You know, the other 3 are who you're competing with, and it seems like Ohio State's got the most to prove in this category, but still, they're right there. They're in that tier 1.
Yeah, they are every year, and it's how I look at it. I think the 3 games they would have played elsewhere would have been against like Illinois, I know Michigan, and like maybe someone. I don't need to see them play those 3 games to know that they're not the top 3 team in the country. You know, I just don't. But that's just me, and what does my opinion matter in this sense? They already made the decision for us.
Exactly. Well, man, I appreciate you coming on tonight, filling the role for our soon-to-be groom, Mr. Mike Piper. Wish out the best to that, man. As always, follow us on whatever platform you listen to, iTunes, Spotify, YouTube. We're going to do this way more. Also, Benny Boy, where are they finding you at, man?
Yeah, man, always at Ben Bobick, WRCB on Twitter, all that good stuff. Once we finish this up and take off the live, I'm probably get some notes together, and we're going to record the competition problem. Mike and I will have a new episode up for you tomorrow, kind of give you a little New Year's Eve plans. We're going to give you all the picks for New Year's 6 bowl games, college football playoff, and what's going to be quite a fun and wacky Week 17 in the NFL. I promise you we are not going to try to dissect the playoff scenarios. We're just going to try to dissect what teams to bet on, depending on who's playing quarterback for who this Sunday. It's going to be a fun one. But, yeah, give us a shout. Give us a follow on there. We'll have a new episode up with the competition problem, all your bet picks this weekend. We had a really good Christmas Day this past week. So the boys are heating up into 2021. So now's the time to hop aboard.
Heck yeah, dude. Well, I appreciate it again. Thank you guys for watching, listening, wherever you're at. Like, subscribe, share the crap out of this, man. We want to make this a good year. 2020 is going to be a fun one for Chat 10 Sports and the whole crew. So shout out. We'll see you Sunday for a Titans watch party also. And you can always watch Benny Boy and the Competition Problem. These guys are great. And going to be doing some live shows soon, right?
Yeah, that's the plan. I mean, we got some NFL playoff games, and they usually when that ends, they play in some bowl game they call the Super One, and so maybe we'll see one there. Definitely coming up here soon as we kind of transition in the hockey season 2 coming up. We're big hockey folks, so if you guys are hockey fans, we're gonna start getting into some hockey picks here soon. Now that they've got the schedule set, Mike and I are big hockey dudes. So I know and a lot of Preds fans down here as well. So definitely, man, for sure.
Appreciate it, guys. Peace out.